Good morning. Welcome to Brain Boot Camp. I am Rachel Witt, the Art Programming Coordinator at Westminster Village in West Lafayette, Indiana. This is a weekly program where we spend 30 minutes together working through different cognitive exercises. We use a use it or lose it mentality. So some of these may seem simple to you, some may seem very challenging, and that's kind of the point. We're all a little bit different, and so the things that are easy to you may not be easy to another. And with that said, we always try and keep our sense of humor. Today's theme is National Frog Jumping Day. We have a lot of fun with this particular topic today. And on that note, let's just jump on in. So we really can't start Frog Jumping Day without starting with Mark Twain. Of course, his very first short story ever published was Jim Smiley and His Jumping Frog, and that was in 1865. So in it, Jim Smiley's frog, his name is Daniel Webster. And I'm going to ask you in 60 seconds to rearrange these four names. I've got them here. Jim, Smiley, Daniel, Webster, and rearrange those into as many different combinations that make sense as possible. They could actually be a name or a nickname for someone, perhaps. So I would say you could use Jim Webster. This would be a totally fine name. Or you could use Smiley Jim, just by changing those two words around in the name. So 60 seconds. 4 words, as many name combinations as you can come up with. Ready, set, go. And your time is up. So I'm going to go through. You have Jim as the first word, Jim Smiley, Jim Daniel, Jim Webster. Smiley is the first word, Smiley Jim, Smiley Webster, Smiley Daniel. I'm not sure about those two. I don't know that Smiley works too well as a formal, as a first name. However, like Smiley Dan would work if you were going to have a nickname for somebody. But Daniel, the more formal, it doesn't work with, I don't think, as well. Then Daniel Smiley, Daniel Jim, Daniel Webster, Webster Jim, Webster Smiley, Webster Daniel. And then I'm curious if anybody tried a 3-way. So I tried Jim Daniel Smiley. I could hear Jim Daniel Smiley. I would read a story about that man. And so you may have paired things together a little bit differently to put in 3 or even 4 words. That would be interesting. So, all right. Well, now that you're warmed up, let's move on to the next thing. So, of course, you have to talk about how long the frog jumps. The Guinness Book of World Records reports that the longest record for frog jumping belongs to a frog named Rosie the Ribbitter. I'm not joking. Rosie the Ribbitter. That's a great name for a frog. Rosie, I assume is female, jumped 7.15 feet in a single bound. That was in 1986. There's been a lot of competition since then, but as I understand it from my sources, she's still the leader. So I've got 3 questions for you related to her jump. The first is, how long is this jump in inches? On average, a frog can jump around 4 feet. How many inches is that? And then finally, what is the difference between Rosie's jump and the average frog's jump? So these are just 3 quick kind of math problems. You have got 45 seconds. is up. How'd you do? For question number 1, how long is the jump in inches? You would multiply the length of the jump, 7.15, by 12, and your answer is 85.8. For the answer to question number 2, you would multiply 4 feet by 12. Of course, that's 48 inches. And for the answer to number 3, you would subtract 48 from 85.8. The difference is 37.8 inches. Okay, so now this next one is a visual sorting exercise. I'm going to put a list of words up here, and in 30 seconds, so this one is intended to be really, really fast. In 30 seconds, I would like you to sort them into 2 piles. One of objects that are longer end to end than Rosie's jump. And the other pile, the other list of words is objects that are shorter end to end than Rosie the Riveter's record jump. 30 seconds. Ready, set, go. So it's kind of hard to visualize sometimes what of those things are longer and shorter. But on the list, there were only 2 things actually that were longer, the car and the bicycle. Both of those are longer than 7 feet. Everything else really isn't. So Calaveras, I'm going to say that correctly, Calaveras County Fair and Jumping Frog Jubilee. It's a great name, isn't it? It is the most famous of the frog jumping competitions, celebrations. It actually would be happening starting tomorrow, May the 14th. I believe it's been suspended. Because of COVID, I didn't go research it fully, but their website seemed to indicate that it would not be happening as scheduled. And a lot of disappointed frog owners. That's what they have. But it's actually a huge fair and festival where they kind of celebrate the jumping of the frogs. So I want to share with you this image because each of the jumping frogs, of course, they have a jockey. And this picture, this man is motivating his frog. So really, here's what I learned about frog jumping is, the technique is you keep your frog in kind of a dark place, dark and cool, so it's nice and calm and rested. You get it out and you very quickly kind of rub on its back legs to warm it up. You put it down and then you just kind of gently set it down and then you scare the heck out of it. That's right. The jockey's job is to jump face first at the frog like it's going to eat it and scare it so badly that it triggers its fight and flight response. And the darn thing, that's what makes it jump. Can you believe that? Who would figure that out? I don't know who would figure that out, but I thought you would enjoy a little bit of that background. So of course the word jump is a 4-letter word. I've given you this great quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald, where he talks about things startling us and how it's good. So I give you this quote, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I would like for you to count the number of 4-letter words. So, for example, the very first one is the word what, W-H-A-T. So go through and just count as quickly as you can, but this is a 2-minute exercise. So time is up. I want to, in true confessions, tell you that I did this whole thing. I took the picture, I was ready to insert it in, and then I found another word. So if you come up through all this, and well, if after I recorded it this time, we find another word that I've missed, or if you've missed words, that's just really, I think, normal. I think I just called myself normal, but oh well. I wanted to let you know that it's not as simple as it sounds. There's a lot of text here. So I came up with 29. Here is an image. Let me scoot over so you can see it. Here's an image of that paragraph with all of those 4-letter words in yellow highlight. So hopefully you came up somewhere in the neighborhood between, say, 27 and 30. I don't know. You want to be in the ballpark. Remember, the cognitive act is the doing, not necessarily in the being correct. So this is exercise. You don't have to get it perfect every single time. All right, so we're going to move on. I'm going to give you another image here. This is another kind of visual assessment thing, but rather than using words this time, we're going to use, well, actual frogs. Here they are. There is, these are, I think, a result of something called gigging, if you know what I mean, which, as I understand it, is just the word for catching frogs. There's some trick to it, I suppose. I need to tell you, I've eaten a frog leg one time, and I just kept kind of flashing back to high school biology class where I had to dissect a frog, and I couldn't really do it. But I know Chef Chad's had him on the menu here a time or two. I haven't seen him lately, but I think every now and then he's served frog legs. But here you have it. I've got this visual image here of different frogs in a bucket. I'd like you to give those a count. Probably you've been counting while I've been talking. The answer is 15, or somewhere in the neighborhood. Kind of hard to see exactly, but I don't get caught by that leaf in the lower right-hand corner. So here's my question to you. How did you count? Did you count based on heads, or did you count based on feet? And that's kind of an important distinction to make when you're trying to gauge things visually, is to kind of intentionally have your brain process what it is you're looking at, which brings us to our next exercise. So this is working memory. I'm going to, here in just a moment, put up a list of all of the frogs that are native to the state of Indiana. And this is, well, you guessed it, everyone's favorite, working memory. These are kind of complex because some of them are a two-word name, some are a 3-word name, but I'm going to give you 60 seconds, study the list, we'll come back for 30 seconds and just try and list as many as you can. Now I know that's really, really quick timing, but we're going to go ahead and push through and try and do it super fast today. So here is your list of frogs. Ready, set, go. Okay, so your time is up. And how did you do? Here's the list. I've put it back up here, the original list, so you can try and look for any blanks. If we were in the same room, I would ask you how many you got, or if you used in particular some pattern or technique for recalling them. So for example, let me scroll down and get to my list here. I'm working, if you keep wondering why I'm looking over to the side, is because my computer screen is over here, and that's what I'm using to put the content in the recording. So I'm sorry I'm not looking at you all the time. Obviously the word frog was in most of them, so that was a little bit of a helpful thing, though there were some toads as well. This list was from the DNR. So these are kind of those primarily Indiana frogs, native frogs to Indiana. But some of them contained consistent words like green or directional, western or southern or eastern. So think through what helped you remember those different things. And we'll move on to the next activity. Staying in the frog zone here, I've got a fun picture for you. I thought this was kind of interesting, and we're going to hop over to math here for just a minute. But this is, of course, a frog with its eggs. I had no idea that frogs lay. The bullfrog, the North American bullfrog, lays between 12,000 and 20,000 eggs at a time. And they lay them on the surface of the water, and then the male fertilizes them, and then they run away. They do not stay to look after their young, so it shouldn't surprise anyone to know that very few actually survive based on predators and water temperature and other conditional things. Most don't survive actually, but we're going to work with the number 12,000 as our number of the day. And I've got 4 math problems here for you. I would like you to take just a moment to do those. We'll come back with some answers. Time is up. So, down here is your list of words. Hopefully you came up with croak, ponds, leaper, bugs, frogs, jump, land, and water. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next activity, and this is our last activity for today, but it's a doozy. So, I like to try and find something humorous, and searching for that, I ran across this picture. So this picture was taken by a woman who has this sweet little gray cat. She crocheted a frog hat for her sweet cat. Then she took some pictures of it, and then she had those printed on a rug. And now this rug, believe it or not, is available on Amazon. That's right. I have no idea why. But there you have it. So, sorry about my phone. Everything is binging today all around me. It's very distracting. Oh, hopefully that's not happening at your house. Okay, so this now we have 3 activities connected to this photo. First thing first, I would like you to think about what hats you have in your house currently, right now, in your closet. If you're a baseball hat collector, this could be a difficult task right now. But think about all the hats you have in your house and try and do a mental inventory of what they look like, where they are, maybe when you've last had them on, but think through that. and try and come up with a good list. Your second activity is to come up with 10 uses for a small rug that is not on your floor. So we've played this before, this 10 things game, where you have an object and you've got to just come up with 10 alternate uses for it. And then finally, the third question. If you had a family member or a friend most likely to put a hat on a cat, who would it be? All right, so that's a lot. It's a lot of instruction. It's 3 activities in one, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes for it. So manage your time a little bit. Try and get all 3 complete in the next 3 minutes. First things first, how'd you do on your inventory of hats? Most of mine, I'm not really a hat wearer, so most of mine are winter hats. But did you think about sun hats or visors? Did you think about baseball caps? Did you think about any scarves that also have a hood? That might count as a hat. You might have counted hoods on coats or jackets. Might have counted silly hats. I have children, which means I have a number of silly hats in my house. Any of those could count. I'm not sure what else I've forgotten there. You're no doubt thinking it right now and reminding me. The second question, 10 uses for a small rug not on your floor. I'm really interested. I wish I knew your answers to these questions. I had things like in my car, in the trunk to protect things, or on seats. I use them sometimes to wrap things up that are fragile, kind of like a reusable packing material. Sometimes I might use them if I have something that's slipping a lot, like a shelf or something like that if I need to put something under it to avoid slipping. I've used them before as a child discipline measure, so I put the rugs on the floor and told them they were not allowed to move off of them for a certain period of time, though that's on the floor. It's not its intentional use, perhaps. And also I know of people who've put them down outside in various spaces if they have a traction issue or something like that. That isn't 10 things, obviously. I had a hard time with this one, so hopefully you had better luck than I did. But if you get a chance, let me know. Let me know what you came up with other than what I did. And then finally, number 3. If you had a family member or friend most likely to put a hat on a cat, who would it be? Well, that one was easy. One of my daughters actually bought my son a hat for his cat. And the cat didn't think much of it. I've got a picture here for you. But that was, my kids do a Christmas exchange, and this was the thing that Lily brought for her brother Mike. It was quite a lot of laughs around our house. But think about that. Think about if you have a family member or a friend or somebody who's just kind of got that sense of humor. Hopefully you came up with the name of someone. If you don't know anyone who would put a hat on a cat, I'll hook you up. Just let me know. And that's it. Another week of Brain Boot Camp. Now, I do have to tell you, there will be no Brain Boot Camp next Wednesday. I am taking a few vacation days next week to try and kind of get some much needed rest and work in the garden and that type of thing. So I will be out for a few days and won't be able to produce next week's boot camp. But I will be back the week after next with another new and exciting Brain Boot Camp adventure. Have a great week.